All right, case blowout. What is that? Case blowout is, or case rupture rather, is where your case fails. And there's a number of reasons why it can fail. One of them could be head spacing, another one could be crack cases, weak cases, overpressure. So there are a few things that would allude to a case rupture. And in the simplest of terms, a case rupture is just like this one here. And you can see that the base of the case, get that in there for you guys, there you go. So you can see that this case absolutely was a catastrophic failure. All right, and we'll get into where this one came from so you guys can actually see that. All right, so case failure. Like I said, it can happen. There's four real basic ways: head spacing, crack cases, weak cases, and overpressure. If you're following your loading manual here, then overpressure really shouldn't be your issue. If you're loading at the top of the scale, well, maybe. Again, you're your quality control, so you can vet that out. Weak cases, crack cases. So weak cases, crack cases, that is something a little bit different, and you can weed out at least the crack cases when you're doing your quality control during your case prep. And I've got a couple cases here, and so this is a new good, or a used, clean, good case. And then I couldn't find any cracked ones because I've already pitched all those. But for this video here, I took a case and took the tin snips to it and slid it so we could get the sound. And what we're talking about here is a quick identification of the sound. And if you listen to this, whoop, hear that? Hear how tinny that is? Hear the higher pitch on that one? Okay. And then when they're in your loading bin, you can hear, as your cases are shaking around, you can hear that one. You'll be able to hear that one if you're really listening for it. And it kind of takes a tuned ear to hear this a couple of times, and you'll pick it up again. A little bit tinnier pitch, lower pitch. Okay. And then a good case just sounds more solid, a little higher pitch to it. But there's a distinct sound difference between the two. All right. So that's a real quick look at identifying your crack cases. Weak cases. All right. That's something that's a little bit different. Let's look at what weak cases are. So two quick things that you can identify in your weak cases are ringing of the case, or in a number of cases that we found, and I couldn't find any of mine because I pitched them all, are cantilevered cases. And a cantilevered case, I took these with a lathe and I put a nice little red mark around them so you can actually see what that is. And it's going to sit right there at about this point, which is where the bullet comes down on a factory load and stops. And then the manufacturers will cantilever that around there. And when they cantilever that, and you reload it over time and the case gets stressed out, then you can get case separation. All right. So when you're going through your brass, you probably want to get those out of circulation, especially for your PCC. PCC, as soon as this round goes off, it's violently trying to come out of the gun, and it can rip that case apart. In your pistols, delayed system, so with a lockup, and a little less prevalent, but it can still happen. So if you're on the clock, you probably don't want to use these cases. The other one is going to be ringing of the case, and that usually happens down in the lower section of the case here, just above the rim, where the strongest part of the case, which is just above the rim, at the bottom of the inside of the case, and then where the walls start to pick up. So you have a configuration, you know, like this, and then right here along that wall, it wants to start to fail where your strongest part of the case is, and then the wall, and then you start to get a failure around there. And they call that ringing, and you'll start to see a dark ring. Again, I put this one on the lathe so you guys can kind of see it. But that is kind of the point that you're going to want to look at for your cases. And if you see those, pitch them, get rid of them. So cantilevered cases, and this ringing here, if you start to see that dark ring around there, throw those cases away, get them out of there. All right, let's look at some of the other stuff I got. All right, so what do we have here? We've got the two cases that we just talked about with the potential cantilever and the potential ringing. Then we've got the actual case rupture here, and then we have the two cases here, the good one, and then the one that has the simulated crack in it, and we heard the audible difference between those. All right, so let's get into actual case rupture itself and what this could possibly be caused by. And first, to do that, let's take a look at the chamber on this. Is a pistol barrel. And let's get that in there, focus, there we go. All right, and I've got that case raised up a little bit so you can kind of see what we're doing here. This is a sectioned out case, and what we're looking for here is this section right here. So we've got the thinnest portion of the case wall, and then we have the base here, which is the strongest portion. The base in most of these guns, we'll push that down, the base in most of these is not supported. It's supported by the breech of your firearm of choice that you're using. All right, and as we can see, that case gets down in there pretty good, and it's supported quite well, as it should be. All right, so from a mechanical standpoint, if you start to alter this ramp, and coincidentally this is an old 1911 barrel, if you start to alter this ramp, that is obviously going to change the exposure on that case, and we need to be very, very careful with that at all times. And that's true for any of these semi-auto firearms. All right, so that's a quick look at the pistol. Let's take a look at a PCC barrel. All right, so this is a PCC barrel that was severely ramped by, unfortunately, pretty reputable firearms manufacturer for a customer, and for whatever reason they decided to really cut this ramp. And as you can see there on the case, pardon my movement here, the wall of the case is pretty severely exposed. All right, so let's pull this out of here, and then let's take the ruptured case, which actually came out of this barrel. And there we go. All right. Oop. Get it into view. And it might be a little hard to see. There we go. A little bit better. And what you're looking at there is the case rupture specifically from this barrel. All right. So modifying your barrels and your feed ramps can be catastrophic, as it was in this. These rounds were not overpressurized. However, for this particular condition, it really wouldn't matter what ammo you had. So you need to be very careful of what you're doing on your firearms. And that was the cause of this case rupture. All right, let's talk a little bit more in closing. So what were our points of discussion? One of them was head spacing. That was one of the ones that we mentioned. We've talked about that in other videos. And that's simply how your case chambers in your breech of your gun. And the quick check to that is right here. So we want that case to come flush with the back of this right here. All right, the hood, which is called the hood. All right, this is a HK barrel, but your 1911s, your Glocks, they all use that hood type profile. So that's your head spacing. The other one is crack cases. Crack cases are going to be your most common. So we talked about that and how to listen for that. So the audible tones, and then of course the visual. The other one is weak cases. How do we get to weak cases? A couple different ways. One, chemically, which could be using the wrong chemical in your sonic cleaner. We don't want to do that. Never introduce your cases to any chemical that could potentially compromise your cases. The other way you get weak cases, and this is probably the more common, is picking up your range brass from a range that just incurred a fire or has had a fire recently. We don't want any of that brass. That's all considered annealed brass and will probably let go in your gun if you load it up. So avoid brass from a range that's unknown or just went through a fire. The other one is overpressure. So if you're following your load book, which I talked about before, you're probably not going to have an issue. Now, if you're one of those guys like we all are or have been in the past, and you like to fiddle with the rounds and you like to try to kick it up to the top of the scale, make sure your brass is top notch, make sure your gun is top notch, or you could start to have brass issues. All right, this is the quick 101 on brass and case rupturing. If you got any questions, let us know and we'll try to help you out. All right, hope this helps. Have a great day, guys.
3 shots to the head. Shooter ready. Stand by. Range is clear. 1.47.